I was eating beans from a can when the sky turned white. Not the flash, I didn't see that. Just the light coming through the gaps in the boards, filling the room like someone had opened a door to somewhere else. 5 seconds, maybe less. When I looked outside, the ridge I'd been using to navigate was gone. Just haze, yellow and thick, and absolutely still. That was 2 months ago, and I'm still walking away from it. I was eating beans from a can when the sky turned white. Not the flash. I didn't see that. I was inside the shell of what used to be a farmhouse, crouched behind a wall that still had most of its paint, scraping the last of the protein paste from the bottom with 2 fingers because I'd lost the spoon somewhere between here and the last settlement. The white came through the gaps in the boards. It filled the room like someone had opened a door to somewhere else entirely. The sound came after, not loud. That's what people don't understand. It wasn't an explosion, it was pressure. The air changed density and my ears popped and I tasted copper, and then it was over, just like that. 5 seconds, maybe less. The light faded back to the usual grey-brown, and I sat there with bean paste on my fingers, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. I finished the can because that's what you do. You finish the food. Then I checked my gear and walked to the window and looked east toward where I'd been planning to go. The horizon was wrong. I'd been walking these roads for 3 years. I knew the shape of things. There was supposed to be a ridgeline about 8 miles out, dark against the sky, with the ruins of transmission towers making a broken spine along the top. I used it to navigate. Now there was just haze. Thick and yellowish and absolutely uniform, like someone had drawn a curtain across the world. I watched it for maybe an hour. The haze didn't move, didn't thin, just sat there, filling the space where the ridge had been. After a while, I realized I was holding my breath without meaning to, and I made myself stop. Someone shouted outside. I picked up my rifle and moved to the door. The farm had 3 other scavengers working it when I'd arrived the day before. We hadn't talked much. That was normal. You acknowledged each other, established you weren't immediately hostile, then kept your distance. One of them, a woman with a scarf wrapped around the lower half of her face, was standing in the yard pointing east. "You see it?" she called when she noticed me. "I see it. That wasn't there yesterday." "No." She turned in a slow circle, scanning the horizon. Nothing west. Nothing north. Just east. The other 2 scavengers emerged from different buildings. One was young, maybe early 20s, with a Pip-Boy on his wrist that looked like it still worked. The other was older, gaunt, carrying a shotgun he held too tightly. We all stood there in the yard, forming an unconscious triangle, nobody getting too close. "Could be a storm," the kid said. The woman shook her head. "Storms move." "Dust cloud?" "From what?" "I don't know. Something big falling over. A structure." The older man spat into the dirt. "That's not dust." We didn't ask him what he thought it was. I don't think any of us wanted to say it first. I went back inside and gathered my things. Didn't take long. I didn't own much. Blanket, water filtration kit, ammunition, medical supplies that were mostly empty packaging at this point, and a road map so old the paper felt like cloth. I rolled everything into my pack and checked the rifle action and stepped back into the yard. The others were still there, still looking east. "I'm heading north," I said. The woman nodded. "Probably smart. You coming?" "Not yet. Want to wait. See if it changes." The kid looked at me, then at her. "What if it doesn't?" None of us answered that. I started walking. Got about 100 yards before the older man called out. "Hey." I stopped, didn't turn around. "If you find people," he said, "ask them what happened." I didn't answer, just kept walking. The road north was the same as every road. Cracked asphalt, rusted vehicles pushed to the sides, buildings that used to mean something reduced to shapes. I'd learned not to study ruins too closely. You start seeing the details, a child's toy in the rubble, a table still set for a meal, and it gets inside you. Better to keep your eyes on the road and your mind on the next mile. I passed a settlement around midday, just a handful of shacks clustered around an old water tower. People watched me from doorways, but nobody challenged me. I didn't stop. The haze was visible behind me now when I looked back, a smudge on the southern horizon that shouldn't have been there. By evening, I reached a town that still had a name, Henderson, according to the sign. Population scratched out. The main street had been fortified at some point, barricades made from cars and sheet metal, but they'd been pushed aside. No guards, no smoke from cook fires. I found a building with intact walls and climbed to the second floor. Good vantage point. I settled in near a window and ate another can of beans, cold this time, and watched the street as the light failed. Movement caught my eye around dusk. 3 figures, walking slowly down the middle of the road, not scavenging, not searching, just walking. They moved like they were tired, or sick, or both. When they passed below my window, I saw their faces. Blank, eyes forward, clothes covered in fine grey powder. They didn't look up, didn't stop, just kept walking north. I waited until they were out of sight, then ate the rest of my beans and tried to sleep. The dreams were bad. They'd been bad for years, but that night was worse. I kept seeing the white light through the gaps in the boards, over and over, except in the dream I could see through the wall. I could see what was making the light. A pillar of fire so bright it burned the shape of itself into your vision even when you closed your eyes. And I knew, in the dream, that someone had decided to make that light. Someone had pushed a button or pulled a lever or given an order, and now there was a pillar where there used to be land and people, and the accumulated weight of everything they'd ever done or thought or been. I woke up shaking. The moon was up, nearly full, painting everything silver. I checked my gear by moonlight and decided not to stay until morning. Something about the empty street felt wrong, like the silence had texture. I was out of Henderson before the moon set. The days blurred together after that. Walk until exhausted, sleep in whatever cover presented itself, wake and walk again. I saw the haze twice more, always to the south or east, always that same sickly yellow color. It didn't seem to be spreading, but it didn't fade either, just sat there on the horizon like a stain. I crossed paths with more people. Most were heading north or west, away from the haze. Nobody wanted to talk about it. When you asked, they'd look at you like you'd said something obscene, then change the subject or walk away. The silence around it felt deliberate. Like if we didn't name it, it wouldn't be real. A week in, I found a caravan stopped by the side of the road. 4 wagons, Brahmin in harness, maybe a dozen people sitting around a cold fire pit. They looked organized, well supplied. The kind of group that had trade routes and regular stops. I approached slowly, hands visible, rifle slung. An old woman stood up. Leader, probably. She had a pistol on her hip, but didn't draw it. "We're not buying," she said. "Not selling." "Then what?" "Information." She studied me. "About?" I gestured vaguely southeast. "The sky, a week ago. You see it?" Her expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Fear, maybe. Or recognition. "We saw." "What was it?" "Don't know." "You must have heard something. You're traders. You talk to people." She glanced back at her caravan. The others were watching now, quiet and tense. When she looked at me again, her face was hard. "We heard lots of things, none of them useful, none of them good. Tell me anyway." She shook her head. "Best thing you can do is keep walking. Don't head east. Don't ask questions. That's the information you need." I stayed there, waiting, but she turned her back and walked to the wagons. Conversation over, the others wouldn't meet my eyes. I moved on. The landscape changed as I went north. More trees, or what was left of them. Skeletal things with branches like reaching fingers. The roads got worse, broken by frost heave and vegetation nobody maintained anymore. I saw animals sometimes. 2-headed deer. Dogs that were probably too sick to be afraid of humans. Once, something large moving through the trees parallel to the road, keeping pace with me for almost an hour before falling back. I never saw what it was. I found a vault entrance around the 2-week mark. Old Vault-Tec facility, the number worn off the door but the symbol still visible. It had been opened from the inside. The massive gear door stood ajar, just enough for a person to slip through. I knew better than to go inside. Vaults were never good news. But I was running low on water and medical supplies, and vaults had infrastructure. Sometimes the automated systems still worked. I squeezed through the gap. The entrance tunnel sloped down into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered along the walls, pale and irregular. The air smelled like rust and something organic I couldn't identify. I kept my rifle up and moved slowly, listening. The vault itself had been abandoned. Recently, by the look of it. Footprints in the dust, doors left open, personal items scattered in living quarters. No bodies, no signs of violence. Just the evidence of people leaving in a hurry. I found the water reclamation system on the 2nd level, still running, somehow. The filters were clogged and the output tasted metallic, but it was clean enough. I filled my bottles and my canteen and kept looking. The medical bay had been picked over, but I found antibiotics and radiation medicine in a locked cabinet. The lock was broken. Someone else had been here first, but they'd missed the hidden compartment behind the main storage. Sloppy work. I was packing the medicine when I heard the sound. Breathing, heavy and wet, coming from somewhere deeper in the vault. I froze, listening. The breathing continued, rhythmic, labored, not moving closer, just existing somewhere in the dark. Every instinct I had said to leave, but I needed to know what had emptied this place, what had made people run. I followed the sound. It led me down to the lower levels, past reactor rooms and storage facilities, into sections that felt older somehow. The walls were different here, poured concrete instead of prefab panels. The lighting was almost non-existent. The breathing was louder now, echoing off the walls. I found it in what might have been a laboratory. The room was large, filled with equipment I didn't understand. Computers, medical devices. Something that looked like an operating theater with restraints on the table. The thing breathing was in the corner. I'm going to describe it as accurately as I can because accuracy is important. Because if I let myself think about it as a thing, as an object, I won't be able to sleep at all anymore. It had been a person. You could still tell. The basic architecture was there, head, torso, limbs, but something had been done to it, changes, additions. Its skin was translucent in places, showing the muscle and bone underneath. Tubes emerged from its back, trailing to machinery that was still running, still pumping something green and luminous through the tubes and into its body. Its face. I'm not going to describe the face. It saw me. I know it did because the breathing changed. Faster. Almost excited. Then it spoke. The voice was wrong. Too many sounds happening at once, like multiple throats trying to form the same words. But I understood it. Progress, it said. Necessary. Continuation. Evolution. I backed toward the door. It didn't follow. Couldn't follow. The tubes kept it tethered. But it kept talking. The same words over and over. Progress. Necessary. Evolution. Like a prayer. Like it was trying to convince itself. I ran. Didn't stop until I was out of the vault, back in the grey daylight, bent over with my hands on my knees trying to remember how to breathe normally. The haze was visible to the southeast, closer than before, or maybe I'd gotten turned around. It didn't matter. I adjusted my pack and started walking west. The dreams got worse after the vault. I'd see the thing in the corner, except now it could move. Now it followed me through empty corridors, whispering about progress, about necessity. I'd wake up convinced I could hear breathing in the dark, and I'd have to light a match just to prove to myself I was alone. I stopped sleeping inside buildings after that. Better to be exposed than trapped. 3 weeks became 4. 4 became 5. The haze appeared and disappeared on the horizon depending on the terrain. Sometimes I'd go days without seeing it, Sometimes it would dominate the entire southern sky, close enough that I could see it wasn't uniform. There were variations in the color, darker patches, streaks. I started seeing more people moving west and north, not groups, individuals. They had the same look, exhausted, hollowed out. We'd pass each other on the road and sometimes exchange a nod, nothing more. There was an understanding between us. We were running from the same thing, even if none of us could name it. I met someone who tried. He was sitting by the side of the road, older man with a pack that looked military surplus. He waved me over, not threatening, just tired. "Got any water?" he asked. I gave him some. He drank carefully, rationing it, then handed the canteen back. "You coming from the east?" he said. "South. See the yellow?" I saw. He nodded slowly. "I was at Fort Harrington when it happened." "You know Fort Harrington?" I shook my head. "Military installation. Pre-war. We'd set up there, 20 of us, farming the land around it. Good soil, good water, safe." He looked at his hands. I was checking the Brahmin when the sky changed. My daughter was inside the fort. She was 7. I didn't say anything. "I went back for her," he continued. "But the fort wasn't there anymore. Just foundation. The walls, the buildings, everything above ground level gone, not destroyed, gone. Like someone had erased it. And the foundation was glowing, not hot, just glowing, green-white, beautiful, almost." He was quiet for a while. "I looked for her for 3 days, he said. Walked the perimeter, called her name, found nothing, not a body, not a piece of clothing, nothing." He looked at me. "You understand what I'm saying? It didn't kill them. It unmade them. There's a difference." I asked him what he thought had done it. He laughed. Dry, humorless sound. "Does it matter? Enclave weapon, Brotherhood experiment, Chinese sleeper device, pre-war automatic defense system. Take your pick. Someone, somewhere, decided that place shouldn't exist anymore, pushed a button, pulled a trigger, and now it doesn't." "You heading west?" I asked. "I'm heading away. That's all I know how to do." We sat together until the light started to fail. Then we went our separate ways. I never asked his name. He never asked mine. The land kept changing. More dead zones, areas where nothing grew and the ground had a glassy quality, like it had been superheated. I'd detour around them when I could, but sometimes they stretched for miles and I had no choice but to cross. The radiation meter I'd been carrying finally gave up around week 6. The needle stopped moving. I didn't know if that meant the radiation was too high to measure or if the device was broken. Either way, the information was the same. Keep walking. I found a settlement that was still occupied. Real settlement, not just scavengers squatting in ruins. They had walls, guards, crops growing in raised beds. A sign outside said waypoint. The guards questioned me for half an hour before letting me in. They wanted to know where I'd come from, what I'd seen, whether I was sick. I answered honestly. They seemed disappointed that I didn't have better information. Inside the walls, life looked almost normal. People working, children playing in a courtyard. Someone had set up a kitchen and was cooking something that smelled like actual food. I felt dizzy looking at it. The ordinariness, the pretense that the world still worked. I found the settlement leader in what used to be a town hall. She was younger than I expected, mid-30s, maybe. She had maps spread across a table, annotated with notes in careful handwriting. "You're the traveler," she said, not a question. "I'm traveling. From the south." "Yes." She studied me. "You look like you've seen things." "Everyone's seen things." "True." She turned back to her maps. "But not everyone comes here afterward. Most people keep moving." "You stopped. Why?" I didn't have a good answer. I was tired. That was part of it. But there was something else. A need to be around people who were still trying, still pretending tomorrow would come. "I need supplies," I said. "We can trade. What do you have?" I showed her what I'd scavenged. Ammunition I didn't need. medical supplies from the vault, a working radio I'd found in an abandoned truck. She examined everything carefully. "The radio's good," she said. "Ammunition we always need. But I'll trade you for information instead, if you're willing." "What kind of information?" She pointed to her maps. "We've been tracking the hazard zones, the areas where the yellow appears. We think there's a pattern, but we don't have enough data points. Tell me everywhere you've seen it. Landmarks, distances, directions." I told her everything I could remember. She marked it on her maps with small, precise symbols. When I finished, she sat back and looked at the pattern that had emerged. "It's spreading," she said quietly. I thought it might be. "No, you don't understand. It's not random. Look." She traced a line through the marked points. "It's moving in a specific direction, like someone systematically clearing terrain." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Clearing for what? I don't know. But if the pattern holds. She measured distances with her fingers. "We have maybe 3 months before it reaches us. So you'll move." "Where?" "We've built something here. We have children. Sick people. We can't just walk into the wasteland. Better than staying and dying." She looked at me then, and I saw something I recognized. The same exhaustion I saw in my own face when I found a mirror. The weight of being responsible for other people's survival. "You're wrong," she said. "Some things are worth dying for. Community, hope, the idea that we can build instead of just scavenge." She stood up. "Take your supplies. We'll make the trade. But think about staying. We could use someone who's seen what's out there." I thought about it. Really did. Spent 2 days in Waypoint watching people live their normal lives. Watched the children play. Watched couples argue and make up. Watched the guards change shifts and the farmers tend their crops, and the whole machine of human society trying to function despite everything. On the 3rd day I packed my things and left before dawn. The woman was right. Some things were worth dying for. But I'd stopped believing I'd die for anything except survival itself, and that's not the same thing. The people in Waypoint still had something to protect. I just had the next mile, and the mile after that. The weather turned as I headed northwest. Actual rain. Not the acidic drizzle that passed for precipitation most places. It came down hard enough to fill my canteen and wash some of the grime off my skin. I stood in it for a while, face turned up, remembering what clean water felt like. I was following a river when I saw the second flash, different from the first. This time I was outside, crossing a bridge, and I had a direct line of sight to the southeast. The light was brief, brilliant white, then green, then that same sickly yellow. No sound. The distance was too great, but I felt it anyway, a pressure in my bones. When the light faded, there was a new haze on the horizon. I watched it bloom and spread like ink in water, watched it settle. Then I crossed the bridge and kept walking. The river led me to another settlement, smaller than Waypoint, just a dozen buildings clustered around an old grain silo. No walls, no guards. I approached carefully. A man emerged from one of the buildings. He was holding a rifle but not pointing it at me. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken. "You alone?" he called. "Yes. See the flash?" I saw. He lowered the rifle. Thought I was going crazy. Been seeing them for weeks. Different directions, different times, but always the same color after. "You're not crazy. That's almost worse." He gestured to his settlement. "We're leaving tomorrow. Heading to the coast. Heard there might be boats. Figured we'd take our chances on the water." "There's nothing on the coast," I said. "It's been bombed flat for centuries." "Maybe, but it's away from here." He looked at the horizon. "Whatever's doing this, it's getting closer. You can feel it, like walls closing in." I couldn't argue with that. I stayed with them that night. They shared food and didn't ask questions. In the morning, I watched them pack their lives into wagons and head west. The man offered me a place with them. I declined. I'd spent too long alone, didn't know how to be part of a group anymore. I headed north instead. The land got rougher, hills and valleys, old forests where the trees had adapted to the radiation, growing in twisted shapes that didn't look like trees at all. I saw more evidence of people passing through, campsites, abandoned gear. Once, a grave marked with stones and a piece of metal with a name scratched into it. The graves multiplied after that. I'd find them every few miles, sometimes clusters, sometimes isolated, all recent, all heading in the same direction I was, away. I tried not to think about what that meant. Around week 8, my food ran out. I'd been rationing carefully, but you can only stretch supplies so far. I set snares and caught nothing. Tried fishing in a stream and pulled up something with too many eyes. I threw it back. I knew the signs. Body getting lighter. Thoughts getting slower. Hands starting to shake. I'd been hungry before. Everyone had. But this felt different, more final. I kept walking anyway. The dreams stopped being dreams. I'd be walking during the day, and suddenly I'd see the pillar of fire again, burning in my peripheral vision. I'd turn to look directly at it, and it would be gone. Just the empty landscape, the grey sky. I started talking to myself. Long conversations about nothing, about everything, about the price of beans in a settlement I'd passed 6 months ago, about whether it was better to die quickly or slowly, whether dying meant anything at all when your entire species was engaged in the same slow fade. I found a road that looked maintained, recent tire tracks. That meant people, organization, maybe food. I followed it. The road led to a checkpoint. Concrete barriers, watchtower, armed guards in matching armor. They saw me coming from a mile away but let me approach. That's close enough. One of them called when I got within speaking distance. I stopped, raised my hands. I'm not hostile, I said. Good. Now turn around. I need supplies. We're not a charity. I can work. I can fight. I've crossed half the wasteland in the last 2 months. I know what's out there. The guard conferred with his partner. They both looked skeptical. What do you know? The first guard said. About what? About what's happening to the east. I told them. All of it. The flashes, the haze, the people running, the settlements emptying, the pattern of destruction moving systematically across the land. I told them about Fort Harrington, about the vault, about the thing in the corner that had been a person. When I finished, they were both staring at me. You're sure about this? The second guard said. I'm sure about what I saw. Wait here. They both disappeared into the watchtower. I stood in the road, swaying slightly, trying to remember when I'd last eaten. 3 days? 4? When they came back, there was a third person with them. Older, female, officer insignia on her uniform. You're the traveler, she said. I'm traveling. You've seen the weapons. The word hit me like cold water. Weapons. Plural. Not natural disaster. Not accident. Someone was doing this on purpose. I've seen the results, I said. How many events? 4. Maybe 5. Hard to be certain. She nodded slowly. We've tracked 7, all in the last 2 months, all targeting population centers or strategic resources. She looked at me with something that might have been respect. You survived 5 of them and walked out on your own. That's impressive. I got lucky. Luck is a skill. She gestured to the guards. Let him through. Get him food and water. Medical check if he needs it. Ma'am, that's an order. They let me pass. The checkpoint was the entrance to something larger. A settlement, a fortress, a city. I couldn't tell anymore. My vision was starting to blur. Someone gave me water and I drank it too fast and threw up. Someone else brought food and made me eat slowly. Bread. Real bread. Not the compressed nutrient bars I'd been surviving on. I sat in a medical tent while a doctor checked my vitals. She was professional, quiet. She didn't ask about the scars. You're dehydrated, she said. Malnourished. Probably been exposed to radiation levels that would kill most people. But you'll live. Good to know. Why were you out there? Where else would I be? She didn't have an answer for that. The officer came back that evening. She had maps, reports, photographs that looked like aerial reconnaissance. I need you to tell me again, she said. Everything. Every detail. So I did. I walked her through the timeline. The locations, the changes in the haze, the pattern I'd noticed without realizing I'd noticed it. The way the destruction seemed to be moving west and north, clearing territory in sweeping arcs. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she spread out her photographs. These are from our scouts, she said, taken at different impact sites. She pointed to one. This was a Brotherhood checkpoint. 300 people. Gone in seconds. Another photo. Enclave bunker. Hardened facility. Nothing left but a crater. Another. Settlement called Waypoint. Population 200. I stopped breathing. When? I managed. 4 days ago. She was watching my face. I tried to keep it neutral. Failed. You knew them, she said, not a question. I passed through. I'm sorry. I looked at the photograph, the crater where Waypoint had been, the woman with her maps, the children playing in the courtyard, all of it gone, not destroyed, unmade. Who's doing it? I asked. We don't know. Someone has to know. You can't deploy weapons like this without infrastructure, supply lines, chain of command. You're right, someone knows. But we're not that someone. She gathered her photographs. All we can do is track the pattern and try to stay ahead of it. For how long? As long as we can. I spent 3 days recovering, eating regularly, sleeping in an actual bed, trying to process the fact that Waypoint was gone, that the woman who'd offered me a place to stay was dead, that the choice I'd made to leave had saved my life and meant I'd survived while people better than me hadn't. On the 4th day, the officer found me. You're leaving, she said. Yes. Where? North, then west, away from the pattern. She handed me a pack. Supplies, food, water, medicine, more than I could have traded for. Why? I asked. Because you've seen more of this than anyone else we've found. Because you survived. Because maybe someone needs to survive. To remember. To tell people what happened. Nobody wants to hear it. Maybe not now, but someday. She paused. There's a settlement northwest of here. Place called Haven. They're trying to build something permanent. Real infrastructure. They might have answers, or at least better questions. I took the pack. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me. Just keep walking. I left before dawn. Again. It was becoming a habit. The land continued northwest, rising into hills. The terrain was harder but cleaner, less radiation, more evidence of life. I saw animals that looked almost normal, trees that were just trees, not twisted monuments to mutation. I passed 3 more settlements, all evacuated, all recent. The pattern was clear now. Even the people too stubborn to believe were believing. The flashes continued. I'd see them every few days, distant fireworks on the horizon, each one adding another smear of yellow to the sky, each one erasing another piece of the world. I stopped trying to count them. The dreams came back, but different. Now I was standing at the edge of a crater, looking down into green-white light, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that if I stepped forward I'd simply cease to exist, not die, just stop being. Unmade, erased, like I'd never mattered at all. I'd wake up shaking, checking my hands in the dark to make sure I was still solid. I found Haven on week 12. It wasn't what I expected. The settlement was built into a valley, terraced fields climbing the slopes, buildings that looked planned rather than improvised. There were walls, but they didn't look defensive, just boundaries. They had livestock, actual livestock, not mutated Brahmin, but something closer to pre-war cattle. Guards met me at the entrance, same questions as always. Where from? What seen? Whether sick? I answered. They let me in. The settlement leader was a man named Thomas. He was younger than the woman at Waypoint, but had the same look. The weight of responsibility, the exhaustion of hope. We've heard about you, he said. You couldn't have. Caravan passed through last week, mentioned a traveler from the south, said you'd walked through 5 impact zones and survived. I was lucky. You keep saying that. He gestured for me to sit. I don't believe in luck anymore. I believe in patterns. Choices. You chose to keep walking when most people would have stopped. What else would I do? Give up. Die. Join the people standing at the craters waiting for the next flash. He leaned forward. We're different here. We're not just surviving. We're building real structures, real systems. We're trying to create something that can outlast this. You can't outlast weapons like this. Maybe not, but we can try. He pulled out a map. We've been collecting data, every impact, every pattern. We think we've found something. I looked at the map. It was more detailed than anything I'd seen. Precise coordinates, timelines, overlapping circles showing probable blast radii. The weapons aren't random, Thomas said. They're targeting specific locations, major settlements, strategic resources. But there's a gap here. He pointed to a region on the map. No impacts, no sightings, like whoever's doing this is deliberately avoiding it. Why? We don't know, but we're going to find out. He looked at me. We're sending an expedition. 3 people, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks back. We need someone who knows how to survive out there, someone who's seen what we're up against. No, you haven't heard what we're offering. I don't care what you're offering. I'm done. I've walked far enough. Thomas sat back. You know what I think? I think you're not tired of walking. I think you're tired of running. There's a difference. Running is about fear. Walking is about purpose. We're offering you a purpose. I don't need purpose. I need to keep existing. Those aren't different things. I left his office angry, irrationally angry. I found a place to sleep in the communal housing and tried to ignore the families around me, the children, the old people, the sick. All the reasons people had for staying in one place and pretending tomorrow mattered. I dreamed about the crater again, but this time when I stepped forward, I didn't cease to exist. I fell, deeper and deeper into green-white light that filled everything. And I could hear voices in the light, thousands of them, millions, everyone who'd been erased. They weren't screaming, they were whispering, asking why, asking who, asking if it mattered that they'd ever existed at all. I woke up and made a decision. I found Thomas in the morning. I'll go, I said. Why the change? Because you're right. There's a difference between running and walking. And I'm tired of running. He nodded. Good. You leave in 3 days. Pack light. We'll supply you. The other 2 expedition members were both younger than me. A woman named Sarah who'd been a Brotherhood scribe before her chapter collapsed. A man named Marcus who was Haven's best scout. They were competent, professional. We didn't waste time on pleasantries. We left Haven heading northeast, following Thomas's map toward the gap in the pattern. The land was rougher here, old mountains worn down by time and bombing. We moved carefully, checking radiation levels, marking our path. The first week was uneventful. We saw signs of passage, old campfires, abandoned equipment, but no people. On the 8th day, we found a settlement. It was small, maybe 20 buildings, but it was occupied. People watched us from windows as we approached. No one came out. Sarah called out, "We're not hostile. We're from Haven. We're just passing through." A door opened. An old man emerged, holding a rifle. "Haven," he said. "We've heard of it. People say it's still standing." "It is." "For how long?" "As long as we can make it." He lowered the rifle slightly. "You heading toward the quiet zone." "The what?" "The place where the lights don't come, where nothing gets erased." He pointed northeast. "It's real. We've sent scouts. They came back talking about structures. Pre-war installations, still active. What kind of installations? The kind that launched the lights. We looked at each other. Sarah spoke first. "You're certain?" "As certain as we can be without dying to confirm it." The old man studied us. "You look like you're planning to die anyway. So, yes. Go, see what's there. Maybe you can stop it. Maybe you'll just add 3 more bodies to the count. Either way, we'll know." We stayed long enough to refill our water and trade for information. The old man drew us a map to the quiet zone, marked the best approaches, the dangers, the places where his scouts had turned back. When we left, he was standing in the doorway, watching us go. "Good luck," he called. We didn't respond. The land changed as we approached the quiet zone. Less damaged, almost pristine in places. We found roads that were intact, buildings that hadn't collapsed, signs of maintenance, recent maintenance. On day 10, we saw the fence. It stretched across the valley, 20 feet high, topped with wire that might have been electrified. Guard towers every 100 yards, no insignia, no identifying marks, just presence and warning. We observed from a distance for 6 hours, saw patrols, saw automated defenses, saw a supply convoy enter through a gate on the far side. "This is it," Sarah whispered. "This is where they're controlling it from." Marcus shook his head. "We can't know that. Could be anything." "Could be. But look at the defenses. Look at the resources they're putting into protection. You don't do that unless you're afraid of something getting in or getting out." "So what do we do?" I'd been quiet, watching, processing. "We get inside." "How?" "Same way everyone does. We wait for another convoy, and we follow it in." It took 2 days. 2 days of waiting in the cold, rationing food, taking turns on watch. But eventually another convoy came, 3 trucks, armed guards. We timed it perfectly. Slipped through the gate while the guards were checking cargo. Split up inside the perimeter. Agreed to meet at a rally point in 12 hours. The complex was enormous. Buildings, bunkers, launch facilities, and in the center, a structure that looked like a control tower, all of it clean, maintained, functioning. I made my way toward the control tower, avoiding patrols, sticking to shadows, got close enough to see through the windows. People inside, technicians, officers, all wearing the same unmarked uniforms, and screens, dozens of screens showing maps, targeting data, impact assessments. I watched them work, watched them highlight coordinates, watched them confirm strikes, watched them erase pieces of the world with the casual efficiency of people doing their jobs. One of the officers noticed me, raised an alarm. I ran, made it to the rally point. Sarah was already there. Marcus arrived minutes later, bleeding from a grazing shot. "Did you see?" Sarah asked. "I saw." "Then we know. We can tell people. We can prove." "Prove what?" "That someone is doing this on purpose? That it's organized? People already know that. They just don't want to believe it." "So what do we do?" I looked back toward the complex, toward the control tower and the screens and the people calmly destroying the world. "We walk away," I said. "We go back to Haven. We tell Thomas what we found. And then we keep walking, because that's all we can do." "That's not enough." "No, but it's what we have." We made it out of the complex, made it past the fence, made it back into the wasteland where we understood the rules. The return journey took longer. Marcus's wound got infected. We had to stop frequently. Sarah became quiet, withdrawn, the weight of what we'd seen settling into her bones. On the 18th day, we saw another flash, close this time, maybe 10 miles southwest. We watched the pillar rise, watched the haze spread, watched another piece of the world disappear. Marcus died on day 20. The infection took him despite the antibiotics. We buried him in a place with trees and marked the grave with stones. Sarah cried. I didn't. I'd stopped crying somewhere around week 4. We reached Haven on day 23. Thomas was waiting. He looked older, tired. "You found it," he said. "Not a question. We found it." And I told him everything. The complex, the control tower, the screens, the casual efficiency of erasure. When I finished, he sat down heavily. "So it's real," he said. "It's organized. They're choosing what to destroy." "Yes." "Why?" "I don't know. Clearing territory. Eliminating threats. Establishing dominance. Does it matter?" "It matters if we want to stop it." I laughed. "Couldn't help it." "Stop it? With what?" "We're scavengers and farmers and people barely holding on. They have infrastructure, weapons, organization. We can't stop them. We can only run, and eventually we'll run out of places to run to." Thomas looked at me for a long time. "You're probably right," he said. "But we're going to try anyway. Because the alternative is accepting that we're already dead, and I'm not ready to do that yet." I stayed in Haven for a week, rested, ate well, let my body recover from the journey. But I couldn't settle, couldn't stop thinking about the control tower, the screens, the people doing their jobs. On the 8th day, I packed my gear and prepared to leave. Thomas found me at the gate. "Where now?" he asked. "West. North. Away from the pattern. You know it doesn't matter. Eventually the pattern will catch up. Eventually. But not today." He handed me a pack. More supplies. "For the road." "Thank you." "No. Thank you. For going. For confirming what we needed to know. For surviving long enough to tell us. What will you do?" "Keep building. Keep hoping. Keep pretending tomorrow matters." He smiled. Sad. Tired. "What else is there?" I didn't have an answer. "I've been walking for 6 months now. Maybe 7. I've lost count of the days. Lost count of the flashes. They're just part of the landscape now. Part of the sky. Part of existence. I see the haze every day. It's closer. Always closer. The pattern is tightening. The safe zones are shrinking. I pass settlements regularly now. Empty settlements. Everyone running. Everyone hoping they'll be the ones who make it. I don't know if I will. Don't know if anyone will. But I keep walking. Because that's what you do. You walk. You survive. You carry the weight of everyone who didn't. You remember the farmhouse and the beans and the white light through the gaps in the boards. You remember Fort Harrington and Waypoint and Haven and all the places that tried to pretend tomorrow mattered. You remember the thing in the vault that used to be a person. You remember the control tower and the screens and the casual efficiency of erasure. You remember it all, every detail, every moment. Because someone has to. Even if there's no one left to tell,